It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, January 27th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is going to be real sick of the Prudential Center and UBS Arena this week.
Keep them coming.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, the Islanders game had some, I think, little buzz around it even beforehand, simply because of the big signing news in the NHL. I kid about that. We're going to talk about the Rantanen trade later in the show for sure. But the Islanders signed former Metro Division roamer and continued Metro Division roamer, it seems, Tony DeAngelo.
If he was a left-handed defenseman, would he even get a job? I think that's what we have to ask. Look, the Islanders are just at the height of desperation. I don't think they're making the playoffs, but they're playing better hockey lately, and they lost Noah Dobson, and they feel like we got to have somebody on the power play who can move the puck. So sure, he could do it. I do want to tell people that for all the people that question why DeAngelo is out of hockey, because even when he was with the Flyers and had 42 points, he was a minus 27.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah, and he is not really good at the defense part of defenseman
at all,
for sure. For sure.
Patrick Waugh is going to love that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it is most likely due to the Dobson injury in combination with Lou Lamoriello being like
on the hot seat.
Yes, to say the least. We still haven't heard for sure from Team Sweden as of recording if Sam Ersson is going to be on the Four Nations team, but it seems like that's the direction it's heading in. But
hopefully, ask the Swedish chef. Maybe he knows. Maybe he has an inside track.
Yeah, hopefully we'll find out for sure. So in that game against the New York Islanders, Ivan Fedotov was in net, and Igor Zamula sat, they said, for an upper body ailment, and so it wasn't a healthy scratch. But we saw Erik Johnson for the first time in months.
And it looked it. I mean, he made a couple good plays and a couple bad plays. I didn't have any expectations for him. But the problem is when you have to use a guy that hasn't played in, I don't know, a month and a half. I don't know how long it's been. In the game against the Islanders, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, I think he did fine, all things considered. And he talked after the game, and that he is pretty zen about all of this, like in terms of his role and knowing that he's not going to get many games, but that he's always ready, and he's keeping his fitness in shape, so he's ready to go. And he certainly made no excuses. He was asked about, the changing defensive pairs, not just because of him coming in and Zamula sitting, but because of that Cam York hit in the first period, where, they were down to 5 defensemen for like half the first period. And so things shuffled around a lot. He's like, he said, we should know better how to play with whoever, and it shouldn't matter.
See, this is my contention. If the Flyers are a true rebuilding team, then really Erik Johnson should only be in case of, desperation, break this glass. But they could have called up Helge Grans. Like they could have. He was at home. Lehigh to Long Island is very close. He could have made it to that game, and you would have a better defenseman. But they don't do that. John doesn't operate that way, and at some point he has to start to operate that way. This has nothing to do with Erik Johnson. This is just about with things that happened in that game. All of a sudden you're playing a guy who hasn't played in a month and a half. Grounds has been playing all along and could certainly play more minutes and play a faster pace than what Erik Johnson can do. That's just the reality.
Okay. I'm just going to say we don't know the timing of them knowing about Zamula not being able to play.
But they have an
We don't
extra
know
roster
any
spot.
of that.
They could have just I'm assuming they had to have known before they got to Long Island that there was possibly an issue, and they could have called him up because they have an extra roster spot.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. I'm just saying I don't have enough information, I think, concretely to say that.
Like Danny could have just had the roster spot filled anyhow. Like he could have just had.
That is also true. That is also
that's
true.
all I'm saying. We don't have to know the timing.
Yeah, I would have expected if they were going to fill that roster spot, it would be a forward since they already have Johnson, presumably as the extra defenseman. But, again, I just personally don't feel comfortable saying that for sure. But would it have been nice to have Grons around? And if they had the lead time to put him in, 100%. I agree with you there. I think Grons would have been a better option overall in there. I think, the key issue on this was defense in terms of the individual breakdowns that led to the Islanders goals for 2 of the 3 goals. I would say those 2-on-1 odd man rushes in the first period. I think, the Flyers defense didn't get back fast enough to be able to make effective plays. And then Fedotov really should have had at least one of those 2, all things being equal, right?
Sure. Yeah, the thing that really just bugs me with the way the defense is deployed on this team is it almost seems like one D partner doesn't talk to the other D partner and they both just start pressing. And it's like you can't do that for very long, especially if you know who's on the ice are faster players. And, on average, the Islanders have the faster players. Maybe not every line, but on average.
Right.
And so it's like, you saw it when they press both of their D. If they're not scoring a goal, it's a problem. And how many 2-on-1s do you need to see to say you can't do it this way?
Right. And I think that on the third goal, I think, again, Fedotov, I would have liked to see him make that stop because, again, for all 3 goals, he had a very clear view of what was happening. This was not a Urson traffic in front situation from the game against the Rangers. It was complete opposite in this game for those goals. And, you would have liked Fedotov to stop that Nelson goal. I thought he came out in the net a little too far.
He did.
In the play, but also Travis Sanheim didn't get back fast enough to get a stick in there. So, it's not all on Fedotov here. I think the defense could have been doing more in all 3 situations.
Yeah, no question.
Not put Fedotov in that position.
I think the mentality that they play with doesn't work anymore. And I think this was good 2 years ago, last year, somewhat effective, this year working against them. That's what I really feel.
Yeah, I think that's true to some degree. I really do. I also think they're not getting the finishes on the other side as much as they did.
Well, that's why they're doing it. It still doesn't mean
right?
They should do it. This game would have at least been closer had they not done it.
Yeah.
And then you hope for those mistakes that the other team makes, but that didn't happen either.
Right. And, I think you got a really good game in net from Sorokin in combination with the Flyers being unable to finish. I don't know.
Sorokin had some gaffes they didn't take advantage of either.
100%. 100%. I think it was a mix of not being able to finish and Sorokin making some really solid saves.
Timely
in there.
Save.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And, I think Michkov, he had that one breakaway opportunity, but I feel like I could even tell as he was skating up the ice, he's in his own head on this breakaway. I can tell. I can already tell. And then
he knew, he knew that there was going to be that opportunity, but then he also knew somebody was bearing down on him. Why was somebody bearing down on him? Because he just needs to get more speed. He has to work on his speed desperately over the summer. Desperately.
Right. And you could just tell he felt that pressure.
Absolutely.
Of getting, creeped up on, eventually. So, That is definitely something that was apparent. One of the other interesting things is that I talked about the Cam York hit earlier in the segment, and Travis Konechny went after him immediately and got
Yeah.
a penalty. And I was like, oh no, is this going to be one of those games where Travis Konechny goes off the rails a little bit, and tries to do everything again?
Right.
Because they're, once they were playing from behind,
Yeah.
when it was 2-1, I was like, oh no. But honestly, he kept his head. And I
He did.
asked Torts about it post game specifically because he's mentioned Travis Konechny multiple times in terms of that playing on the edge. And Torts was like, no, I wasn't worried about it at all, that Konechny was going to go over this line in terms of, causing problems and making big mistakes. And he, to his credit, Travis Konechny did not do that.
No,
So
he didn't.
I was very impressed.
He didn't do it. The hit on York is a great hit. Like Romanov,
Yeah.
that's what he does. He specializes in that now. They've turned him into that guy. And so this is where we say, like for Cam York's sake, he still has to get physically stronger. It wasn't going to save him on that. But if he gets physically stronger, guys may not want to line up that hit with him anymore.
Right.
And he's just not there yet. He's not the biggest guy.
Yeah. Well, it was good to see him back in the game.
It was. He's
for
a
the
tough guy.
second. Yeah, for the second period. So much relief there because he just went straight down the tunnel and didn't come
Yeah.
back for the rest of the first. So
he's been
that
working on
was
that for a
good to
couple
see.
years, and he has to still work on his strength factor.
Yeah. And then lastly, I would say that fourth line is still continuing to build chemistry. I thought they had some really good chances, especially in the second period. Abel still needs to work a little bit on the battles on the boards with stronger guys, right?
Yes.
So there was a little bit of that where he lost the battle. But
the Islanders, that's their specialty. That really is.
Right. And so I just feel like with a little bit more time, he'll adjust for sure.
I think so.
I'm not worried about it, but it was just something I noticed in this particular game
Yeah.
that was different because the Islanders, to your point, play a little bit
They do.
tougher on that front. But, another tough loss, and we got to move on to New Jersey again, this time starting at home. We've got the home and home.
With a lot of puppies.
Yes. Yes. We're going to talk about that coming up.
Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and win potentially $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. I'm going to say right now, because of when we're taping, we don't even know who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I saw John Batiste is doing the anthem. I'm going to say bet the over on the anthem because he is a jazz guy, and jazz people always drag it out. That's like to me, that's a lock. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you could score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
On tomorrow's show, of course, we will talk about part one of this home and home against the New Jersey Devils. Plus, we'll have Phantoms Tuesday. And again, interesting things in
that first Kolosov game back, I watched it.
Oof. Ooh, boy. Anyway,
Oofa.
Plus, Ollie Lixwell, as of taping, has 3 goals in 2 games.
Yes.
So, of course, he does. Anyway, we'll get into more of that on tomorrow's show. Plus, we're going to answer your mailbag questions on Wednesday. So get those in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. All right, Russ. So the New Jersey Devils, since we last saw them, they had a loss to the Ottawa Senators 2-1. They won 5-1 over the Bruins, which was kind of an unusual win for them.
That's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah. Just considering that they don't usually win by that kind of a margin. We talked about previously that they tend to play pretty close games, which was, of course, their most recent game was a 4-3 overtime win against the Montreal Canadiens, which is a very important win for New Jersey. And at least Montreal got a point out of it from their
Right.
perspective, which is
Yeah.
bad for us.
Yep. Those
But
games are terrible. The Flyers are in a
yep.
bad spot now. Let's be real. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack Hughes got the game-winning goal. He hadn't scored in a little while, so as far as he's concerned, that was good for him personally. As far as where he is and where the team is, what was not so good about that game is Nico Hischier got cross-checked by Nick Suzuki. The Devils faithful are very salty about it because there was no call on the play in the game. But Hischier is day to day nonetheless. So I'm not thinking we'll see him tonight. Maybe he'll be okay
For
for
the
the
next one. Yeah.
Wednesday game, but that is my supposition based on what we know as of recording.
No, I agree with that. I think Heishier is going to miss that one. We know Markstrom's out, but Jake Allen played in the last one. And he played well. Like, it wasn't his fault the Flyers beat him. So Jake Allen, this is where the Devils really have rebounded from a year ago because now they have two solid goalies. Before,
Right.
this would have put them in a tizzy.
They didn't even have any solid goalies
Right.
before.
And this would have put them in a tizzy, and now it doesn't. So, yeah, facing Jake Allen's no picnic.
Yeah, I think that we'll likely see Allen in net for
Yeah.
this one.
I mean, I doubt we'll see Nico Dawes, but he's going to play one of
Yeah.
those games.
Right. I would think they would want Dawes to play at home
Correct.
just because he'll need that extra
Yeah,
familiarity,
that little extra oomph.
support. Yeah,
Even though
that's what I would do.
even though the Devils are a bottom 5 or 6 team in attendance, which is shocking as good as they are. But anyhow, moving on.
Yeah, right there with the Islanders, who the fans, well, not the fans, but I don't know if you saw that video
I
of
did.
Barzal complaining about the empty seats at
Well,
UBS
I mean,
Arena,
I'll go
but
one further. I was on ESPN for a minute looking at like the game cast for a second, and tickets were selling for as low as $33. I mean, this arena is not that old. Fans
Nope.
are just not showing up.
Anyway, I have many things to say about that, but given my feelings about that arena. But yeah, again, with the Devils, I think, the Flyers won that game, but I think there was definitely room for improvement. And
Sure, it came down to
obviously,
just like a play.
yeah. And so I think that y- uh, with Heischer out, there's going to be some opportunity there. And, one thing we've been harping on a little bit is face-offs. And, we mentioned that Heischer was extremely dominant at the face-off dot. And without him there, is there going to be some opportunity for some more set plays for the Flyers? In theory, should be.
Should be.
That pattern sort of continued actually in the Islanders game. We didn't mention it last segment, but Morgan Frost had a much better success rate against Brock Nelson. He was 4 for 5. Noah Cates was 0 for 7.
This show
Right?
is not surprised at that.
Correct. So maybe this time around, they could balance that out a little bit and give Morgan Frost a few more of those faceoffs than
How
Noah
about all
Cates
of them?
and me,
How
and
about
have some
all of them? I mean, this
opportunity.
is not Cates's forte. We did a whole show on it. Go back and watch the show. You'll see this is not his strength.
Right. So I think there's that. And then I also think that the Flyers are going to have to do a much better job getting back defensively, especially against this Devils team. We talked about it
Yes.
against the Islanders.
Yeah, that's how
They
they gave
had
up the first goal the last time that we were in New Jersey watching that game.
Yep.
That first goal they
Yep.
couldn't get back.
Correct. So I think they're going to have to sort of tweak that defensive structure that we've been talking about. And then, we'll see what happens
What about the power
with.
play, Rachel? How's that doing?
Well, I was trying to avoid that, but
It's a discussion. Sorry.
it is a discussion, and I think the 6-on-5 against the Islanders was pretty bad.
It was awful.
It was really bad.
It's not even a
Uh,
threat anymore. It's like
no, they just cannot create lanes for themselves. And it's the problem on the power play and the 6-on-5. And it's worse on the 6-on-5 for sure because there's one more opposing player out there, but still, I think.
And there's one other thing that was ticking off fans online, which I understand. Having Richard on that top power play and then throwing him out there in those situations, he really has not earned that. There are other players on this team that have been playing the whole season, and now you're just throwing that guy in there. And a guy that could easily take off of that would be Bobby Brink. Bobby
Well,
Brink,
they took Brink out
I know, but I mean
to
for
put
the rest,
Richard.
I know, but I mean keep him off and put somebody else.
Yeah, they took Brink out to put Richard on, so I don't know how that
No,
would
that's
work.
well, I mean, don't put either. I guess that was the way I meant to say it. Don't put
Okay,
either. That's
okay,
because Brink has been bad on it, so that's fine. They identified that. They took him off. Uh, but put somebody else, not Richard. So I don't know who was missing on that one. I'd have to go back and look at the tape. I don't want to
yeah,
sound like an NFL coach, but I would have to.
I don't mind Richard on the second unit. I think it, depending on the amount of time that they're out there, I just think that they do have to do something different there, and we've said that all season, and
Yeah.
it's so frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you watch it and you could see a lot of times it's almost doomed from the start, just from the fumbling that happens at the beginning of it. Whether it's not getting the face off, whether it's that first pass, all of a sudden it gets, hit a little bit and they get the puck and they don't know what to do with it. And the other team sets up right. And all of a sudden, I mean, what did they have? Like two shots on goal pretty quick,
Yeah.
the Islanders in that one. And it shouldn't be that way. You have the advantage. I mean, the other day when they had the 2-man advantage for a little while, it didn't even seem like they had those extra players on the ice because of the
Yeah.
way they set up.
Yeah, it's true. It's
I'm
absolutely true
frustrated
that,
just talking about it.
yeah, again, it just create some lanes. You have to get the opposing defense to move so you can
Yeah.
create those lanes, and the opposing defense is like, "Nah, we can just stay planted here. We don't have to move because we know the Flyers won't do anything."
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten desperate to the point where Ristolainen's playing now on the power play. Like, come on, what are we doing? This is not Risto from, 7 years ago. He's a different guy. He could pass the
Yeah.
puck, but he's not hitting the net.
No, that is definitely true. All right. Well, it is Monday, so of course we will have our nemesis of the week. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about that big Mikko Rantanen trade that happened on Friday as well, coming up next. All right, Russ. So the big trade between the Colorado Avalanche and Carolina Hurricanes, with Chicago thrown in for a little extra spice and salary retention here. Obviously, the big part of it is that Mikko Rantanen went to Carolina along with Taylor Hall from Chicago. And then Colorado got Natchez and Jack Drury, plus a 2025 second rounder and a 2026 fourth round pick, while Chicago got a third round pick from the Canes for retaining that salary. And Rantanen is definitely a rental here, and there was no indication initially that there was going to be a contract extension.
Well, because he wants $14 million bucks,
Yep.
presumably, and there's no way the Canes are doing that. So yeah, he's a rental, I think.
Yeah. So the rumors were out there that there was potentially a deal in place with the Canucks, and they were just kind of trying to shop around and see the best they could get. Like, the thing with Carolina to me is they always seem like they're in desperation mode to like take that little additional step that will get them to the promised land, right?
Well, they are.
And so do you think this is the deal that will get them there, or is this another we're just trying anything?
No, I think they're trying to bolster their playoff scoring. That has been an issue.
Yeah.
The Rangers have been the team that has been the thorn in their side. I don't think they're going to have that thorn in their side this year. So then the next thing is the goaltending. So this is one of the two issues. The goaltending's still an issue. And if Freddie Anderson's ready, Freddie Anderson goes in. No matter how good Kochekov's playing, Brendan Moore doesn't seem to
Right.
trust him. So there's talks of maybe, John Gibson being a guy they'd go after who just went out with a UBI, but supposedly it's not serious. But still, I don't know if John Gibson wants to go there. he may not want to leave Anaheim. He may just be in it for the long haul there. He has the hammer on that. So there's no guarantee they get him. So yes, they did cure one of their problems, but the other bigger problem is goaltending. And it's not that Freddie Anderson can't play. It's a combination of not stopping the timely goal and getting hurt. It's more getting hurt than anything lately.
Yeah. And, I think Carolina, I think they know that they're not going to catch the Caps, right? So they're either going to be in second or third in
Right.
the division, depending on what the Devils end up doing, right? And I think
Yes.
it's more in the hands of the Devils than it is in Carolina's hands,
I do
to be
too.
honest, just because of how inconsistent the Devils have been.
Yeah,
Like
they've dropped more than Carolina's risen.
Exactly. So I think that's really the determining factor there, unless, in some crazy circumstance, Columbus can go on an absolute tear and the Devils tank to the bottom of the ocean. But that's really the only kind of scenario that would change things there. And I think Carolina knows that since they don't have the driver's seat really in the conference, that they had to do something a little extra to try and give themselves some sort of additional advantage, and Rantanen does that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Now, the big question to me is, will he develop chemistry with this Carolina team when he was basically ripped out of his heart and home and a place that he loved playing for in
Yeah,
Colorado?
he was a little shocked, but I guess,
Yeah.
you can't be shocked. You were gonna be a UFA.
Mhm.
Your agent and you had designs on getting a certain salary. They weren't gonna have you supersede McKinnon's salary, so I'm surprised he was shocked. I think the Avs did what the Avs had to do. They got Netches, who's a really good player. They got Drury, who's a good role player and can
Yep.
penalty kill and such. And they still have money, Rachel. And so there's a lot of rumors there could be one or two veterans in this league that they might be targeting should those teams really fall out of it. So, and I think one of them's a chance. So I think that's their plan. They have just enough to be able to get one of those people. And so I think they're not done. They cleared this cap space for a reason. They
Yep.
knew they couldn't keep the player. Yes, does it make them a little lesser? Sure. But when the playoffs start, you play a little differently anyhow. And I think they can make up the slack. I think they have enough talent. They'll make up the slack. They may just score a half goal a game less. That's all.
Right. And that's the thing, is that the Avs do have the talent and the scoring outside of him. And it's like the Flyers trade Travis Konechny, that's like the whole game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
But
half the
but
team.
the Avalanche are getting huge scoring contributions from like three other guys. So they'll
Right.
be fine.
Yeah,
So
but here's where it affects the Flyers. It affects the Flyers in the sense that teams do not want to pay $14 million for any winger.
yep.
Doesn't matter who you are. I think Panarin gets the most right now. And, you know, does a team want to pay $14 million for someone on the wing? No. Will they pay it for a top center? Sure. Will they pay it for a top defenseman? Sure. For a wing? No. And I think that's the line of demarcation now, even with the cap going up. So, like, if you're a team like the Flyers, when you're drafting, everybody, you might hear him say, "Hey, take Porter Martone." Hey, Martone's a really good player, but there's going to be a time where you're going to have to question, can this wing take us to the promised land? Because if you can't, I'm not paying this guy whatever he's going to need to make after his ELC. That's what you have to start factoring in, what the market is like.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely a fair consideration. All right. Well, we do, of course, have the Devils twice this week and the Islanders to wrap it up. That whole game is going to be crazy. We'll talk
Oh yeah,
about it later in the
revenge
week.
game.
Yep, on several fronts. So, for our nemesis of the week, last week I talked a lot about the Metro Division hell, and that continues this week. Russ, you talked about not complaining about the NFL refs for giving Patrick Mahomes a little bit of a thumb on the scale in those games. For
Oh,
me
Adam
this week,
Schefter's still whining about it. I can't believe, like, it's still a story. It's like, whatever, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So this week for me, it's got to be New Jersey, right? And it pains me to say that in some ways, just because, again, it's still to this day. I have said this on the show multiple times, and people get mad at me, but I don't care. The fact that the New Jersey Devils team is named after a legend from South Jersey, where it's Flyers fans, will bother me for the rest of eternity. Like, the New Jersey
That's
Devil
fair.
is a Pine Barrens legend. That's South Jersey. That's Flyers territory. Like, pick something new. Pick something new. I just don't like it. So I'm going to continue to rant about that for the rest of time.
It's your age-old one. All right, I'm going to give a slow clap to the Baltimore Orioles, but this is where it affects all sports. So they have a value menu now coming up for this season. So basically, people have done the economics and said the Orioles are a good team. So you could basically take your family to an Orioles game, family of 4, and spend less than $100 on this value menu. All beef hot dog. Now, again, I'll put beef in quotes, $4. This one will blow your mind. 16-ounce refillable soda cup, $4. Now, hold on. I know when I go to Citizens Bank, I'm getting some stupid soda cup with a picture of whatever Philly on it, and it's like $12. This is refillable, and it's $4. Popcorn, $3.50. Peanuts, $2.50. If they can do it, other teams can do it. What are other teams willing to do to make it a little more family friendly to fill the seats? And in essence, you're going to get your money back, but you're gouging others. And so, this is just like a thought for all sports. 12-ounce Vizzy Hard Seltzer. So I assume that has alcohol. $6. That's reasonable.
Yep. I think we're seeing it a little bit more and more. I believe the Utah hockey team has like some good
Yeah,
deals, and the Flyers took over the dollar dog night because the
correct.
Phillies got rid of it.
Yes.
So, there's little signs of it. And
There needs to be
especially,
more.
yeah, I think so. Like,
There's a limit to what people can spend, and
yeah.
this makes it, affordable. That's all.
Absolutely. All right. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. As a reminder, we'll be back tomorrow to discuss the Lehigh Valley Phantoms as well as the outcome of part 1 of the home and home against the New Jersey Devils. And we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.